The world can be a scary place, especially when you're alone in the dark, listening to every creak and groan of your house. But what if the things that go bump in the night aren't just figments of your imagination? What if they're real? Tonight, we delve into the unsettling world of true parenting horror stories, where the line between love and terror blurs, and the ones you trust most become the source of your deepest fears. These are the stories that will keep you up at night, clutching your loved ones close, questioning every shadow and every whisper in the dark. We're about to explore the nightmares that haunt parents, the chilling reminders that sometimes the greatest horrors hit closest to home. So turn off the lights, lock your doors, and hold your children close, because tonight we face the darkness together. The arrival of a newborn brings immense joy, but it also ushers in sleepless nights and a constant undercurrent of worry. For Lisa and Mark, the exhaustion of new parenthood was a small price to pay for the privilege of holding their son, Noah, in their arms. They poured every ounce of their being into caring for him, their days a blur of feedings, diaper changes, and the sweet fleeting moments of peace when Noah finally drifted off to sleep. To ease their anxieties and keep a watchful eye on their precious son, they installed a baby monitor in his nursery. The monitor became their lifeline, a constant source of reassurance that Noah was safe and sound in his crib. Little did they know this seemingly innocuous device would soon become a portal to their worst nightmares, a window into a terrifying reality they never knew existed. As the weeks morphed into months, the fatigue settled deep into their bones, a constant companion to their newfound parental responsibilities. One particularly grueling night around 3 a.m., Lisa jolted awake. A wave of icy dread washed over her, the feeling of being watched sending shivers down her spine. Mark lay beside her, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm of sleep. Lisa tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, attributing it to the overwhelming exhaustion that had become her new normal. She closed her eyes, willing herself back to sleep, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing second. Then a faint crackling sound pierced the silence, drawing her attention to the baby monitor on the nightstand. At first, she dismissed it as static, a common occurrence with electronic devices, but as she listened closer, her heart pounded against her ribs, a cold dread seeping into her veins. A whisper, barely audible above the static, sent chills down her spine. "Shh! Go back to sleep, little one." It wasn't Noah's voice. Lisa's blood ran cold. The voice, laced with an unnerving tenderness, was distinctly not her baby's. It seemed to emanate from the very depths of the monitor, as if the device itself had become a conduit for something sinister. Her hand trembled as she reached out to shake Mark awake. "Mark!" she whispered urgently, her voice tight with fear. "Wake up! Something's wrong!" Mark stirred, his brow furrowed in sleep. He mumbled incoherently, his eyes still closed. "Mark, listen," Lisa hissed, her eyes glued to the monitor. The whispering continued, growing louder, more insistent. "Go back to sleep, little one. Mommy and Daddy are tired." Mark's eyes flew open, his sleep-addled expression replaced with one of alarm as he registered the terror in Lisa's voice. He sat up abruptly, grabbing the monitor and staring at the screen. Inside the crib, bathed in the faint glow of the nightlight, something was standing over Noah. It was tall and gaunt, its form shifting and swirling like smoke. Elongated arms, tipped with what appeared to be impossibly long fingers, reached towards Noah, stroking his head with a gentleness that belied the horror of the situation. Lisa screamed, a primal sound ripped from her throat, a mixture of fear and disbelief. The figure on the screen paused, its head tilting slowly as if it had heard her cry. Mark, his face ashen, bolted out of bed, his bare feet pounding against the hardwood floor as he sprinted towards the nursery. He flung the door open, his heart hammering against his ribs, every instinct screaming at him to protect his child. But the nursery was empty. Noah lay peacefully in his crib, his tiny chest rising and falling in a rhythmic slumber, oblivious to the terror that had gripped his parents just moments ago. The monitor, still clutched tightly in Mark's hand, flickered, the image of the shadowy figure dissolving into static. The only sound in the room was Noah's peaceful breathing, a stark contrast to the frantic pounding of Mark's heart. Lisa, her hand clasped over her mouth to stifle a sob, entered the nursery cautiously, her eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of the intruder. But there was nothing. The room was exactly as they had left it, the rocking chair swaying gently, a remnant of Lisa's earlier attempts to soothe Noah to sleep. Mark placed the monitor on the floor, the static buzzing in the otherwise silent room. He knelt beside the crib, his hand hovering over Noah's tiny chest, as if to reassure himself that their son was truly safe. Lisa joined him, her eyes red-rimmed, her body trembling with residual fear. They sat there for what felt like an eternity, their gazes locked on their son, their minds struggling to reconcile the terrifying image on the monitor with the peaceful reality before them. As they sat there, the silence broken only by their ragged breaths, the monitor flickered again. Lisa and Mark both flinched, their eyes drawn back to the screen like moths to a flame. The static cleared for a split second, revealing the nursery, the crib, and the figure. It was closer now, its form more defined, less ethereal. It seemed to be leaning towards the camera, its movements deliberate, almost predatory. And then Lisa gasped, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The figure's face, shrouded in shadow moments before, was now illuminated by an unnatural light. Its eyes, two glowing orbs of pure white, stared directly at them, boring into their souls with an intensity that sent shivers down their spines. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the image vanished, the screen dissolving into static once more. The buzzing of the monitor seemed to amplify the silence in the room, a constant reminder of the horror they had just witnessed. Lisa and Mark, their faces pale with terror, sat frozen in place, the image of the figure's glowing eyes seared into their minds. The monitor continued to buzz, the static a constant reminder of the unseen intruder that had invaded their home, their sanctuary. They knew with a certainty that chilled them to the bone that they were not alone. Something was in their house, something evil, something that watched their every move, something that seemed to have a particular interest in their son. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the nursery window, casting long, eerie shadows across the room, Lisa and Mark made a silent vow to protect their son, no matter the cost. They knew their lives would never be the same. They were trapped in a nightmare, haunted by the chilling image of the figure and its glowing eyes, forever questioning the safety of their home, forever fearing the darkness that surrounded them. The baby monitor, once a source of comfort, now served as a constant reminder of the unseen terror that lurked in the shadows, watching, waiting. Moving to a new home is often seen as a chance for a fresh start, a chance to create new memories and leave old ones behind. For Emily and her 3-year-old son, Jake, their move to an older, charming house promised a cozy life filled with laughter and new adventures. The house, with its creaky floorboards and antique furniture, exuded a certain charm, a sense of history whispering from its walls. Jake, with his boundless energy and infectious laughter, seemed to come alive in the new environment, his imagination running wild as he explored the nooks and crannies of their new home. But beneath the surface of their idyllic new life, a darkness stirred. From the very first night, an unsettling feeling permeated the air, a sense of unease that sent shivers down Emily's spine. It began subtly, a series of unexplainable events that could easily be dismissed as coincidence or the quirks of an old house. A door slamming shut on its own, a floorboard creaking when no one was around, the feeling of being watched from the shadows. As the days turned into nights, Emily noticed a change in Jake's behavior. He became withdrawn, his usual exuberance replaced with a quiet pensiveness. He would often be found talking to himself in hushed tones, his eyes fixed on some unseen presence in the corner of the room. At first, Emily dismissed it as an active imagination, a common occurrence in children his age. But as Jake's conversations with his imaginary friend became more frequent, his tone shifting between giggles and hushed whispers, a knot of worry began to form in Emily's stomach. One night, As she tucked Jake into bed, his small hand clutching his favorite teddy bear, Emily decided to broach the subject. "Who are you talking to, sweetheart?" she asked gently, her hand stroking his hair. Jake, his eyes wide and innocent, smiled up at her. "My new friend," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the gentle hum of the nightlight. "He comes to play when it's dark." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Jake's words, spoken with such conviction, sent a chill down her spine. She tried to rationalize his behavior, telling herself that it was just an overactive imagination fueled by the excitement of the move and the unfamiliar surroundings. But deep down, a primal instinct, a mother's intuition, whispered that something wasn't right. That night, as Jake drifted off to sleep, his small chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm, Emily lay awake, her mind racing. She decided to install a security camera in Jake's room, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was captivating her son's attention, hoping to prove to herself that it was nothing more than harmless childhood fantasies. The next morning, Emily woke with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. She rushed to Jake's room, relief washing over her as she found him sleeping soundly, his face peaceful and serene. But her relief was short-lived. As she reached for the security camera footage, a sense of dread washed over her. A premonition that what she was about to see would shatter her world. Emily sat down at her computer, her hand trembling slightly as she clicked on the video file. The footage showed Jake sleeping peacefully in his bed, the only sound the gentle hum of the nightlight. Hours passed, the clock on the screen ticking by with agonizing slowness. Then, at precisely 3:14 a.m., the image on the screen flickered, the peaceful scene disrupted by a wave of static. Emily leaned closer to the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. When the image cleared, Jake was sitting upright in bed, his eyes wide open, staring intently at the corner of the room. He reached out his tiny hand, his fingers splayed as if reaching for someone. Then, Emily gasped, her blood running cold. A voice, deep and distorted, emanated from the corner of the room, a guttural growl that seemed to claw its way out of the very depths of hell. "Come with me," it rasped, the words sending shivers down Emily's spine. The footage cut out abruptly, leaving Emily staring at the blank screen, her heart pounding in her ears. She jumped to her feet, knocking over her chair in her haste, and raced to Jake's room. She threw open the door, her eyes frantically searching every corner, her mind replaying the chilling voice from the footage. Jake lay sleeping peacefully in his bed, his chest rising and falling with each innocent breath. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over her like a shroud. She scooped Jake into her arms, his small body warm and comforting against her trembling frame. "Mommy?" he mumbled, his eyes fluttering open, his voice thick with sleep. "Why did you take me back? He said we were going on an adventure." Emily's blood ran cold. Jake's words confirmed her worst fears. He had been talking to something that had tried to lure him away. From that night forward, Jake never slept in that room again. Emily moved him into her own room, desperate to keep him close, to shield him from whatever unseen force had invaded their home. They moved out of the house as soon as they could, leaving behind the chilling memories and the unsettling feeling that they were not alone. But even in their new home, miles away from the old house, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister had followed them. Sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet, Emily could have sworn she heard Jake giggling softly in his sleep. And then, even more terrifying, she would hear another giggle, fainter, more sinister, echoing Jake's laughter. Emily knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that they would never be truly free from the shadows that haunted their past. The voice from the security footage, the chilling words, "Come with me," echoed in her nightmares. She was left to grapple with the horrifying realization that some things cannot be unseen, some horrors cannot be left behind. The experience had irrevocably changed her, leaving her with a constant sense of unease, a fear of the dark that extended beyond the walls of any home. The house, with its charming facade and sinister secret, remained a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic life. And Emily was left to wonder, with a shudder, what might have happened if she hadn't checked the security footage that night, if she hadn't heard that chilling voice whispering from the shadows. "16 years old, 16 years of laughter, tears, and firsts. 16 years that Maria, a single mother, cherished every moment of. But tonight, those 16 years felt a million miles away. Tonight, the silence in the house was deafening. Sophie, Maria's only daughter, was late. Not just fashionably late, but truly unsettlingly late. The clock ticked past 10 p.m., the time Sophie was supposed to be home from her friend's house. Each tick of the clock was like a hammer blow to Maria's heart. Where was her daughter? What could have happened? Maria had called Sophie's cell phone countless times, but it went straight to voicemail. Each unanswered ring was like a shard of ice piercing her hope. She tried calling Sophie's friends, but no one had seen her since earlier that evening. Fear, cold and clammy, began to tighten its grip around Maria's chest. Minutes turned into an eternity. Every passing car, every creak of the house sent Maria's heart into overdrive. She paced the living room, unable to sit still, unable to think clearly. The thought of calling the police loomed over her, but she hesitated. What if this was all just a misunderstanding? What if Sophie was fine and she was overreacting? Just as Maria's hand hovered over the phone, about to dial 911, she heard it. The distinct sound of the front door creaking open. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave, so strong it almost brought her to her knees. "Sophie!" she called out, her voice trembling with a mixture of relief and residual fear. But there was no answer. Only silence met her question, amplifying the fear that had only momentarily subsided. She walked cautiously towards the hallway, her hand gripping the wall for support. The front door was still ajar, as if someone had just walked in. But the hallway was empty. Sophie was nowhere to be seen. Confusion clouded Maria's mind. Had she imagined the sound of the door? Had her fear-addled mind played a cruel trick on her? Then her phone buzzed, a notification flashing on the screen. It was from her doorbell camera. With trembling fingers, Maria opened the app and clicked on the notification. The footage showed Sophie standing at the door, her back to the camera, but something was wrong. Sophie wasn't moving. She just stood there, unnaturally still. A chill ran down Maria's spine. This wasn't right. As Maria watched the footage, her heart pounded in her chest. Sophie, still motionless, slowly turned her head towards the camera. The blood drained from Maria's face. Sophie's face, usually so full of life, was pale and gaunt. Her eyes were wide and vacant, staring straight into the camera but seemingly seeing nothing. And then, a slow, unnatural grin spread across Sophie's face. It wasn't the warm, genuine smile Maria knew so well. This was different. This smile was wrong. It stretched too wide, revealing too much teeth, and sent shivers down Maria's spine. The camera glitched, the image flickering before going dark. Panic surged through Maria. She had to get to Sophie. She sprinted to the front door, throwing it open wide, expecting to see her daughter standing there. But there was nothing. Only the empty street, illuminated by the dim glow of the street lights. Sophie was gone. The footage, the unsettling grin, the empty doorway. It was all too much. Maria collapsed to the floor, her body racked with sobs. Where was Sophie? Who had been at her door? The next morning the police arrived, their faces grim. They had found Sophie, miles away, deep in the woods. She had been dead for hours. Maria's world shattered. Her daughter, her everything, was gone. But as the days turned into weeks, one terrifying thought haunted Maria, refusing to let her find peace. The police said Sophie had been dead for hours before Maria saw the doorbell camera footage. So if Sophie was already gone, who or what had smiled at Maria from the other side of that door? Three families, forever marked by the chilling encounters within their own homes. The unexplained events, the chilling images, the lingering fear. It's a reminder that sometimes the things that terrify us the most hit closest to home. Which story haunted you the most? Let us know in the comments. And remember, not every parent is alone at night. Sometimes, something else is watching. Something sinister lurking in the shadows, waiting for its moment to strike fear into the hearts of those who dare to feel safe. Sweet dreams, or should I say sleep tight.